Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the Global Vue Meetup. My name is Simone, and I'm a senior software engineer at Digital Lab. Our sponsor today is Digital Labs, your partner in modern digital transformation. We specialize in mentorship, consulting, training, and staff augmentation for enterprise organization. You can find out more on digitallabs.com, or you can send us an email at hi@dis.co. We have a couple of announcements. As always, as you may be aware, we do loads of different meetups, not just the one about Vue. As you can see from this list, we got the GraphQL meetup, the Angular meetup, and a JavaScript marathon coming up for December the 9th. If you've never attended the JavaScript marathon before, it's a full day event followed, they usually follow a specific trail or topic, and are fantastic for people that either are starting or actually at medium or advanced senior engineer. Then we also have our monthly mentoring session with Women in Tech, and that's going to be December the 9th at 7 a.m. So before losing any time, let's introduce our fantastic speakers. Today we're going to have two talks, one from Samuel and one from Corbin. So Samuel, introduce yourself to our lovely audience.
Hi, everybody. My name is Samuel, and I'm the head of developer relationship and in Storyblok. And I have also slide about me in my presentation, but in short, basically I'm speaking, doing a lot of stuff and talking a lot about the Nuxt.js and Storyblok mainly, and Jamstack.
Amazing. And yourself, Corbin, welcome as well.
Thank you. So I'm a front-end engineer at CooperVision, although I don't represent them today, really, because I'm just an engineer at the company. I like tinkering with code. I'm Crutchcorn on just about everywhere. You'll see my social media handles at the end of my talk. And I'm passionate about random parts of web dev. So, yeah.
Well, that's the best. That's the best you can get. So today's schedule is going to be as follows. We're going to have the welcome that we're just doing right now. We're then going to have the first talk from Samuel that is titled "Fast and Furious Going Headless with Nuxt.js," and then it's going to be followed up by Corbin on Vuetifying that's very complicated. Okay,
I'm sorry about that. It's my fault.
Beautiful. Okay. So Corbin is going to say the title of his talk when he goes later on. I'm not going to tempt anymore. This is enough. And then we're going to finish up with the closing notes. Just a reminder to everyone, we usually allow the speaker to do the whole talk, and then at the end of it, we're going to read some questions from the chat. So if at any point you have any question that you would like to do or anything, just write it in the chat, in the YouTube chat, and we're going to pick up questions, and the speaker, we're going to have a couple of minutes to answer them. So that's everything for me. I have nothing else to actually add apart from good luck to both of you guys, and enjoy your presentation. So first one on the stage, it's Samuel. So let's share your screen. Fantastic. I can see the slides. Right. I'm going to mute myself, and I'm just going to enjoy the talk.
Thank you very much. So one more time, the talk is Fast and Furious, and it's called Fast and Furious because we will be Fast and Furious. And this should be around 30 minutes, and we will be going headless with Nuxt.js. Exactly what we are going to do is we are going to build from scratch a Nuxt.js project, a website with a headless solution, in this case, a Storyblok. If you want to follow me and have any question later, just follow me on Twitter and write me DM. I'm always there, or ask me questions after the talk. So quickly about me, I already introduced myself. I'm currently head of the developer relationship at Storyblok, but I was working with Storyblok long before that. As I joined the company, I was big fan of the Nuxt.js, and I was looking for the best solution for me, and that solution was at the end Storyblok. So don't waste the time and jump to the next slide. And the next slide is almost the last slide I have, because I personally love speaking and showing a code. So teach people something that they can use the next day maybe. And so I'm not showing a lot of slides. I'm going directly to code. All code you will see today, you can see also, or you can check on the GitHub. Just go to github.com, storyblok/talk, blazing it fast, Nuxt.js, as you can see here on the slide. So the first question, if you are starting with the Nuxt.js project, is how to start. And in my opinion, the best way to start is just go to your terminal and use the create Nuxt.js app or Nuxt app, which you can write yarn create Nuxt app and just name your project. So And why is this the best way? It's because the life cycle, the development cycle of the Nuxt.js is so fast that they are giving and adding new features, new versions so fast that even if you are doing your own templates, usually it doesn't make a sense, at least in my case. So the next thing is like set up the project name. I will go for JavaScript. I will do this a little bit here. Then the package manager, I'm using still Yarn. In this case, I'm already using a Tailwind CSS as I like it now, but I was like not the big fan at the beginning. But I think really like it's something you should use right now. We will not need any Nuxt.js modules. Even we will be using Storyblok module, and I will get to that again later. Definitely use linting, but for the purpose of the demo, I'm not using any linter tools. Testing, also no testing, and the project will be universal, so server-side rendering or generation. And the target could be server or static. It's totally up to you. I'm going for server today. I'm using VS Code, and basically GitHub doesn't matter, and also the version system will be GitHub. And after this, the project will be set up. And I saved them some time. So what you will see is exactly something like this. So this is your project. And first thing, if you enter your project in Nuxt.js, always try if everything is working. As you can see here on the right side is my terminal where I wrote a yarn dev. So I started basically the development mode of the Nuxt.js, and my project is running on the local host. So we can now open the local host. So let's try what's here. And the local host, we see the introduction screen from the Nuxt.js, which is similar to all other projects like Nuxt.js also have. You can go to documentation and GitHub, and everything is up and running. So what is the next step? As this is basically the project, the Nuxt.js is already ready for the deployment. So we need to set up also our content somewhere. And this is the headless part or the Storyblok part of the solution. So you would go for a Storyblok page. I would go for first the Storyblok, where you can go for register and login. And then after registration and login, you will end a similar space like this, where you can manage all your spaces, which represent the projects. We just call them internally spaces. As you can see here, I have some favorites, but as I said, we are going from scratch today. So let's create a new space, and I am going to copy some text because I will be doing a lot of typos. So let's throw here a name of our project, which is in this case Blazing with Flask Showcase. And as you can see, I'm going to really create it from scratch, new space. I'm not duplicating spaces. I'm not playing with the demo and not joining any existing space. I will be really creating everything from scratch. So let's create a new space. And this was all. This was really fast. First thing we can see right now is our content section, and where we'll be like keeping and managing all the content of our website or application or whatever we are going to do with our content. And in this case, we see a little guide, which I am going to close because I am today your guide. So what is this? This is the home. It's like first dummy content created. We can remove it, delete it. I will be using it just for this purpose of the demo, but this represents usually an index page because every index page needs to have a name in the content management system. We called it right now home. We could call it differently. And if I click on it, I will enter also the editor where we can edit our content. The part which is like why I choose a Storyblok and why I think the Storyblok is so cool is that Storyblok has a real-time visual editor, which is not set up right now because this is the part here, the big part in the middle, and there will be we should see our website there, but we will get to that later. On the right-hand side, we can see our content, which is, as you can see, it's teaser, and I can already like open the teaser. I change this to hello Vue Meetup, for example. And can I go back? I can also like create a new blocks which are custom defined for this project, and we at this moment have like 3 of them. So we have also like another feature, or we can like add a teaser, etc. I can save it. And I can even publish it. And if I would have set up webhook for a deployment to Vercel or Netlify or AWS, then I would deploy my website at this moment. But I didn't set up it right now at this moment. What I can do even still is also like check my draft JSON, how would look like my content. So what I exactly created at this moment is represented in this JSON, which I will be able to get with my API. And this could be also like you can get also this JSON, this content through GraphQL, but we will get to that later. And then you can also like check the publish JSON. So that's like the two different stages of of your content. So draft and the published. This is the basics, which I need to really fast like explain to understand what I will be doing in the next steps. So, okay, we have what we have right now. So we created our first page. We have a Nuxt.js project, but we didn't connect them. And this is the part where we are going to like how to connect them. As you can see here in the middle, we have this like token, which should be used for communication between the Storyblok and Nuxt.js. And as I said, we created already a module for the Storyblok, which is like, for the Nuxt.js. So it's like Storyblok Nuxt.js module, which you can simply install and then the connection is working. So let's do that. Let's jump back to the project. I just stop it and let's install the yarn at Storyblok Next, which seems like this, and let's install it. After the installation, all you need to do is basically jump to the Next config, and I prepare here a few cheat sheets for me, so it's like commented code, etc., that I will be not typing everything, and I will just uncomment this module, and you can see here is the whole configuration right now for the Storyblok Next module. This is the basics configuration out there. You can set up also like more properties, like what kind of version are you, what verification are you going to do, etc. Everything is in the GitHub where is the documentation, but right now we all need an access token, and we will be today working with the draft or like preview content. So let's get the token for us. So first, go to the back. Here's the token, or always you can find the token also in settings under the API keys, where you can also create tokens for a different environment. So if I go for production, because if I publish the content, I should have a different access to that content. Isn't that draft content? It's only a very fast cached content, which is able to get only through the production API token. But right now, as I said, I just need a preview token. So let's pass it directly in the next config, which I don't recommend to do in the real world. Please use .env files as is here, load the .env files, and then if you're deploying this to AWS, Deadly 5 hours, or wherever you are going to deploy it, save that Storyblok space token there and don't push it to your GitHub account or any other versioning system out there. It's a little bit dangerous sometimes. So, okay, I just set up my access token, and then I can test it if everything is working. So right now I'm starting my Nuxt.js. It's good. The building can take a little bit more time because of the streaming and all the setup that I have right now. So let's see how much time it takes. Usually it doesn't take a lot of time. And we should see also the update here directly in the localhost. So it's already done, right? And we don't see any error. So everything is up and running, but we still don't see our content. And otherwise, if I go to also back to the content here in the Storyblok and I open the home page, I still don't see any preview here. So let's fix also this. What we should see here is our localhost. So exactly this same introduction screen. And this is like very easy to fix because as you can see here, it's like fake URL, which is saying like, here should be your server address /home, which home is the Slack of this page. So let's go back. Let's go to the settings. And here in the general, we just need to replace the location, the default environment. And as our location, our environment is right now the localhost, I just need to pass there a localhost. But if I would have multiple environments with different like builds of my project, like production, then I can also like create a multiple views, like also like development, etc. Then I can save it. I can go to content, and now if I go to home, I should see a different. Sorry for this. This is my internet provider. So as you can see, there is an error, and as this error is a good thing because the error is from the Nuxt.js. So that means that it is working. And why we have an error here is because we are asking Nuxt.js to like render the website called home, but we didn't create it a home or define the root for that. Because that would mean that here in the pages folder, there should be a home.vue, and that would be rendered. As we don't have that, we could also write a router or a mapping that if we are asking for a /home, it should be an index.vue. Or we can do something better. and we can override it directly here in the visual preview. So this is like a quick fix from our side, because in this preview we just say like, okay, if you are on the home or any other page, this will be rendered on different URL. It is set up in the config. So if I go to config and here in the real path, all I need to set up is the slash, because we have only index.vue. So let's add here as empty slash and save it, and we should see an update soon. And I don't see an update. And now it's the update. I didn't get a live reload, and that should be live reloaded. It happens sometimes. So now we see our Nuxt.js project. Great. But we still don't see the content here. I still show you some content that I have a teaser with some text. I have even the grid also with the features, and the features have a different content, but I still don't see it here. And the reason why I don't see it, because I didn't ask Storyblok for the data. I didn't do a request to our API. The second, I didn't create these components for it in the Nuxt.js. So what I am talking about, the components. Storyblok is based on the atomic design basically. So everything here you can see are components. And the best way to explain it is the component section. So if I go back to the components, you can see here that this is like at this moment all custom components that we created. These are predefined and I can like delete them. But right now we have two types of the components. The one type is the content type, and the second one is nest table. The nest table components, or as we call them, blocks, are the components that can be nested in any other component through the special property called block. It could be using this feature, you can basically create a chain of never-ending nested components and create like a unlimited combination of different layouts, setups, and whatever you would like to do. Additional to that, you can like also always set up some restrictions and rules how this nesting is working and what you can use in what component. So here I have a feature which is a nest table component, or as we call it, block. And then we have a content type, which is in this case page. The typical content types are like pages, so it's like page, outer page, a landing page, article page, but it could be also like items, which are not represented by the pages, but it's like products that you are selling on your website. So it will be used on different pages and loaded through the API. But okay. And we call these content types the stories. And that's basically like why the Storyblok is called the Storyblok. It's because we are creating a stories. So story and the blocks inside the stories. So together it's the Storyblok. And we are not a storybook, which we are using also. And yeah, there's a lot of confusion between the Storyblok and Storybook name. But back to the components. Right now I have a feature. So the feature, if I click on it, there is a schema or the definition of the feature component. And right now I have only one field name there called name. And this name is type of the text. Very easy, very simple, the most simple component you can create. The same goes for the teaser. If I open the teaser, it's, as you can see, only one field of type headline and the text is the type of it. I could change the type, but right now I will do that later as I will be creating a new one. Then I have a grid where I have a special field called columns, and these columns are type blocks. This means that I can use in these blocks any other nestable component, and I can, for example, whitelist which one. So let's say like I would like to whitelist them. So the component I would like to use here it will be only feature. And I will save. So right now I will be able to create inside the grid only the features, no teasers. And the last thing is what I have here is a page, which is also a component. And inside is only one field called body, which I created also customly. And this body is type blocks, and I can use any other nestable block here. So I can use a feature, grid, or teaser. So basically it's like definition from which components will be build my body of my website. In this case, so what I am exactly talking about, let's show it in the content. So if I go back to the content and open the home, which is type of page, then you can see here is the field called body, and then there is basically a list of different blocks or nestable components, and I can get add there a teaser. For example, I can call this teaser like teaser. And then if I save it and I show you the draft.json, then you can see that inside the draft.json, I have exactly the content, where is a field called body. Then the component is type page, and this body is an array of a component where the first component is object, and this is the teaser with text headline, hello Vue Meetup. Very simple. So we should have an idea what is going on in Storyblok. Now, how to create this in the Nuxt.js. And this is the point where you don't need to learn anything new. It's basically what you did like till today. If you use a Vue.js, if you use a Nuxt.js, you are doing exactly. You are creating a component, and using this combination of these components, you are creating a new, bigger component. So you are building from atoms to the website. So atomic design, basically. So let's jump to the Nuxt.js and create those components. As you can guess, I already prepared them. I just commented them. So as you can see here, I have my component, and my teaser is very simple. It's basically a little HTML with a little bit styling from the Tailwind CSS, and is rendering the blog.headline. I'm using the props block to send my data down the water, so basically with the waterfall, so till it gets the object to the right component. And here is a little special thing called Vuetiful, which is later used to connection between the Storyblok preview and the right-hand side editor. And you will, I will just keep it in mind for now. So let's not complicate it and make it even faster. The feature is almost the same. I am just rendering a little bit very simple HTML, the Vue HTML basically, or it's not Vue HTML, but you know what I mean. A little bit styling, rendering the name, and getting my content through the block property. Prop. Then I have a grid where I'm using a default dynamic Vue.js component called component. And this is great because using the is property, you can like define what kind of component should be here rendered. So as you can see, I will get my content through the block. And then here, if the is block.component will decide which component is rendered here. It's a little bit maybe confusing because I'm doing here the block in the block.columns. This should be maybe called column. And then you would have here a different property. But in this case, as you can see here, the is block.component should be returning the name of the component we want to render in this place. So what is this exactly? Is in the draft.json, it's exactly here. There is the component variable or the name or the identifier, and here is the value teaser. So here the block.component will return the teaser, and at the end we will render the teaser component here. Very simple. And then, as you can see, the grid is just styled unordered list using the Tailwind CSS. And the last thing we need to explain is the page, which is basically very simple to grid. As you can see, we are using one more time the component. Even if I could directly the component, which where I'm like looping through the body of my page and rendering dynamically the different components. So this could be a feature, grid, or teaser. Great, nice. So we have our pages, our components. Let's also register them because the dynamic comments of the Nuxt.js is not working really. So I'm using this old way to register really fast all my components. So I have just import them and register them to the Vue. And then in the Nuxt.js config, I need to also add this plugin that all of them are also recognized by the Nuxt.js. We will wait a little bit till it is built, and we will check if there is a change in the Storyblok. So let's open the home. You can see it's a client is bundling, and there is no change. And this change, why we don't see any change, is we still didn't ask for our request our content. So let's do a really quick request. As I said, we will have only the index page today. So I have index page here. And this is the default code of the index page. We'll hide the right side. At first, I will just remove the default code from the Nuxt.js core team, which is this nice welcome screen. And I will uncomment my code, and then I will comment it. So I will be not using a Nuxt.js logo. So also I need to remove this part. Then I need to uncomment this part. And basically, I will remove all the styling because I'm using Tailwind CSS. So what exactly is happening here is I am rendering also dynamically like template of the page. So in this case, I could also replace with the page because I have only one type of the page or content type. But if you would do it this way, if you have like multiple content types like articles, etc., etc. Then in the script, I'm just creating my dummy data, so story with empty content. Then I'm using the async data through the context to load and request the story from the Storyblok API my content. Exactly in this case, I'm asking statically only for the content of the home because I know the home is representing my index page. In the real world, what you should do is like something similar to this. Using the context here, you should find out what content from the Storyblok you should ask for. So you will find out like, okay, what is my first look? So if the full slug is the home, then I'm asking only for the index. But if it's like different, then I will be asking Storyblok for that page. And this function can be much more complicated if it depends on your project. And then also the same thing goes for version because I'm here asking only for the draft version of my content. But in the real world, probably if you are going to deploy the production version, then you will be asking only for the published project content and not the draft project content. I guess that's also very simple and straightforward. And you can do it like using the .env file or using the isdef variable from the Nuxt.js. Great. So here I have a story API, which I already mentioned, and this was also installed by the Storyblok Nuxt module. So you don't have to do anything special. And for this moment, just forget this line. I will get there a little bit later. And at the end, if everything goes okay, I will just replace basically with the response my data here. So this data will be replaced by the response. So okay, if I save it, I should see a update, and I see basically my content right now here. And even with here, you can see some outline. So if I and even if I click here on the website, you can see that on the right side, it's showing and jumping between the different content. So if I click here, I see that I'm on the component called grid, and I see also my grid on the right side. I can reorder it. I can play with this. I can like change this to feature new, for example, and call this hello world back, for example, and I can hit the save. And after save, I even see a reload. And this is pretty cool. So first of all, why you see the outline? This is because the V editable. And this is working only on the draft content. So we are sending some identifiers and then using the V editable, which I mentioned sooner. There is like this connection between the Nuxt.js website and the right-hand side editor on the right side. Cool. And that works the both ways. So you can see like where I am like hovering. The second thing is like as I hit the save, you saw a reload. This was achieved by very easily, basically by registering in mounted event the publish and change event. And if publish or change event in the Storyblok bridge, which was also installed by the Storyblok module, is catched, then we ask Nuxt.js to reload the website. Very simple. So the publish and the change events are the save and publish. But I think like we have a Nuxt.js, which is a modern framework, and we can do much more, like something more cooler. And that's the input event. We could listen for the input event, and this is the code which is already prepared here. So if I save, uncomment this, save it, wait for a rebuild, you can see here that I am basically listen for an input event. And then if I'm on the correct story, which is like making like sure that I am correct on the correct story in the Storyblok, then I will replace my current story content with the content from the event I am like catching. So from the input event. So what I mean here, just let's jump here and let's change this to Vue Meetup. And you see basically the real-time editing. As I am hitting the keyboard, and it's updating. And I don't have to hit the save to see the preview. And why is this a cool feature, in my opinion, is because if you do something like this, and you can then also like do all the reordering and the stuff like this, is that your content editors will load it because they don't have to hit the save. And hitting save is kind of strange because all the time as you hit the save here, you will basically create a new version of your content, and the versioning of your content is getting polluted, and in some point of time it's almost unusable to go back, because you hit so many times the save button that your content is really like your history is not usable anymore. And what I mean with that is, like, if you are a content editor, you should test always your content. So you could check, like, okay, does this work on the mobile? Okay, so it doesn't work, so let's make it like that it's work on the mobile. Then let's check if it's working on different resolution, and if you're happy with all the content and how it's look on all the possible resolutions, then you will hit the save button only once. But this is what I think is super cool. And then, of course, go for publish. But right now, I still promise to create something like a website, and we have hopefully a little bit more time. And I would like to show you how to create an article very fastly in the Storyblok with the Nuxt.js, and then make here a section where I will feature my articles, like teasers for them. So let's do that. How to do this? Let's jump to the components and create a new component called article. So it will be article, and let's not do any typos now. And this will be a content type, because in the future, probably the article should be represented by the page. So I will create an article. Then I will add to this article following fields is hero image. Then, of course, title. What was there? Intro, author, and prose. So the hero image, as you can expect, it will be an image. So I go for assets and the type image. Then the title, I'm quite happy with the text. It's simple text, very short, nothing complicated. Intro, in my opinion, should be a text area, so it will be like a longer text, but without any possibility of styling. The author, there could be a multiple implementation of the authors, but I will go for the simplest one. So let's go for a single option that you can have only one author, and I will be defining the source of the authors here in the component. So I will be the one author. And let's make Dom the second author. And lastly, the prose, it would be like where I will write my text. This could be like multiple components. In this case, to keep it simple, it will be only one field. And you could go for the Markdown or rich text editor. I personally love more rich text editor, because I can define there, customize there, and create a custom classes there. So we're done. I just defined a very simple schema of my article, and I basically can use it. Which is cool about the Storyblok right now is that I can go to my writers, content editors, and tell them, like, hey, you don't have to be blocked by myself. You can go and create my the content already. So go to the content. I only create you one folder called articles, because you would like to keep all the articles in this folder. Then let's choose that the default type will be article here, and let's create the first article. Go to the folder and create first entry, my first article. And as we don't have any preview or template in the Nuxt.js for it, so let's focus only on the content. Let's minimize this, and let's upload a first image. And hopefully I have here desktop, talk, and the image number 1. So let's confirm this. Let's not focus, do any focus point and stuff. And let's call this article 1. Let's add there some text. I prepared already and installed from the Nuxt.js website. I will be the author, and here I will write my text and do a little bit styling and that kind of stuff, but not important right now. Let's save it. Go back and create, like, I very quickly create 2 more articles. Second.
We're a bit struggling with time.
How much time do I have?
You're 4 minutes over.
4?
4 minutes over.
I need 5 more. 4 more. Is it okay?
3.
Okay, let's do that.
Deal of the day.
So yeah, okay, do it a little fast. I think like it's okay. So let's do that. So do image number 2. I will just replace this very quickly. Oh, come on, internet. Not now. Nice. Save. And let's create a copy. And I believe I will make it in time. Great. Let's quickly publish them, all of them, and let's create a featured component very quickly. So featured articles. So and here will be only articles. These will be picked by hand. So I will go for a multi-option. Here I will choose a story. So I will be choosing from my folder called articles. This, if I'm correct, save. And now I can use it. So I can go to content, home, and I can focus on the here. It should be a section. So I can go for featured articles, and I, of course, did here of articles. Save this. So I can pick my articles, I can save it, and you can see it all in here in the JSON. But let's do this. But we cannot see it here. And why we don't see it is because we didn't introduce these components. So in the Nuxt.js, I have a component called featured articles, which will basically render the unordered list of these articles using the article teaser here and sending the content, of course. There is article teaser where I am rendering the title, intro, and the author, and also rendering the image, which they're using the also Storyblok image service with resizing the image to 300 to 150 very quickly. So this is done. Let's go for components.js. Let's uncomment this. And if I uncomment this, it should work. So let's save it. And let's hope that I didn't do any typo quickly. And we can see our basically the preview. So originally it's looking like a kind of website. I can click here. As you can see here, I did one typo. I forgot in the schema a title. So I can go define schema and add a title very quickly. You can save it. And the title would be like featured articles. So I can save it. And now I can even reorder those articles to the right order and copy paste it. So if I go for copy, add it here, change it, for example, to Sam's article, and then show only the Sam's article. So this is very quickly what you can do with it. If you want to follow this and find out how to do it, then the easiest way to do it, basically, go to Storyblok/Nuxt.js multi-language website tutorial. Here, you can build and continue and create websites similar to this with a headline, with the multi-language, also with the header and the footer and multiple components. I would also like to mention that you can go for storyblok.com/tc/Nuxt.js, which is a landing page, and you can also watch once more time, a little bit slower this talk, basically. So don't worry if you miss it, and I'm really fast here. Here are a lot of tips how to do a different stuff. And as I don't want to take for myself more time, I think this is last slide where I'm getting to questions and answers. So if you have any questions, ask me on the Twitter or directly now.
Yeah,
hopefully it was nice.
I had around 20 questions for you. So you're really, really lucky that you went too far and there's no time for questions. It was fantastic, by the way. It's great to see, how quickly you managed to get the website up and running. And it's just fantastic. And it's great to see what this great technology and, hopefully many people will reach out and will start to use this. Surely I will try it out. So,
yep.
Thank you so much again, Samuel. And now it's time for Corbin. I will remove one person from the stream and add Corbin. Hi, Corbin.
Hello. Welcome.
Yeah, thank you for waiting.
Yeah, that was a super awesome talk, although he was very fast and very furious.
Poor Samuel. It really needed a drink now. I could see, he really tried to put the 3 articles. He did manage everything, and you did just one mistake by not adding the typo. So to be honest,
yeah, very well done. And I've never used Story, so I'm not gonna lie. Just like you, I had admittedly misunderstood Storyblok as a competitor to Storybook, but I totally understand what Storyblok is doing now, and I think it's a fantastic tool. I hope to use it in future projects.
You nailed it, Samuel. Good. So now is your time, Corbin.
All right,
let's do it. Now, don't forget, the first thing you have to do is say the title of
yes.
this talk, because I was not able to do it.
Well, it's my fault for making a tongue twister, isn't it?
Yes, not to an Italian living in UK. Yeah, that doesn't work.
To be fair, my friends came up with the title. I just rolled with it, so you can blame them.
I will indeed, yes. So I'll add the screen over and I will mute myself and good luck.
Awesome. So this is Vuetiful composing, an introduction to the composition API. Hopefully that wasn't too much of a tongue twister. Try that one at home, see how it works for you. So the goals of the talk today is we're going to familiarize ourselves with the composition API, which is a new feature. We're going to explain the migration pattern from using the options API to using the composition API. We're going to show usage of the composition API with two of the community packages, which is the Vuex, like the Flux alternative in Vue, and the Vue Router. We're going to compare against other framework solution, which really means we're going to compare about hooks. And we're going to have fun, I hope. We're going to have a good time. So first of all, what is the composition API? If you've ever seen my talk on React hooks, which you may not have, this slide is going to look very familiar to you. So this the composition API is a new API for application logic. It's reusable and organized, which is a huge advantage that you'll see later on. It's built into Vue 3, but it's also able to be used with Vue 2 using a compatibility package. It eliminates this usage for some of your components, and it utilizes a new setup method. So before we dive into the composition API, let's do a quick recap of what the options API looks like. So when I say options API, what I'm really referring to is these methods, right? So like the data method or the methods property, that's what's called the options API. And it's the normal way to write Vue components. It's the Vue 2 way to do things. So you'll notice that data and methods are completely separated. So, if you have a lot of different data properties and a lot of different methods, you may have some logic that's kind of separated from each other visually. In the logic, you'll have to use this. So let's say that I wanted to do a console log. I'd have to do console log this.data.test. But in the template, I just reference test, which is a bit different. So it's important to keep in mind that there is two differences when you use this and when you don't use this between the template and the logic itself. Don't know why that's there. So now that we understand the options API, let's take a look at what the new setup method is. So the setup method is part of the Vue composition API, and it's the very first building block. So instead of having data and methods returned separately, you have test, which is data, and you have log, which is a function. And then you return them, and anything that's returned within this return statement is accessible from the template or other parts of the options API, but it's accessible to the component without the this keyword. So additional, you'll notice that prop is a method itself. You can have the first property of the setup as properties. So here we have the parent, which we pass in an other prop as 1, 2, 3. And then here we define the props as we normally would. But now we can console log the props and rename that prop as a new data element. We also have context as the second argument. So we have attributes, which is like the actual attributes on the element that are not inputs. We have slots, which are like templates. We have emit, which is the emit function, which you can use to emit events. But the second property is context. So you have all three of those on context, and you can use optionally which ones you want. Yeah. So actually, let's take a look at that running really quickly. I should preload these things next time. So you'll see here inside of our app, we have a demo, which we are passing the other property, and we're listening for the pressed event. When the pressed event is run, it says hello from app. We're passing in a template, which slots into header, which just says test. In the demo, we render the slot header. We also render a button, which has the log and emit. So when I press this, it should do 2 console logs, 1 console log here, and then it should emit, and then it should run this console log here. So let's take a look. Oh, it was already zoomed in. So if I run this, you'll see it says hello from demo, hello from app. So it's propagating down up just like any other emitter. But instead of using the setup API, the options API, we're using the setup function to return all of these things. But that's not all the setup function can do. So if you're looking for mutable data properties, you're able to use the ref API here. So you are able to access the data that's returned here, and you're able to mutate the XY values. So here, if I open up the demo, you can see that we're just simply doing a listen for when the mouse moves, and we're updating the X and Y values. And suddenly there we go. So something you'll notice is that I can't do X equals or Y equals whatever. Instead, I have to do X dot value or Y dot value. This is because this API utilizes passing by reference, which is a kind of fancy way of saying that it uses some JavaScript tricks to do what it's doing here. And then I render the X and the Y just like I would any other data type. So that's pretty cool. We also have reactive. So instead of keeping these separately, we're able to combine these together. So X and Y are saved onto the pose, which is short for position property. And we're able to change .x or .y. You'll notice that we don't need .value anymore. And it will do the same thing. However, you'll notice that I'm returning pose as a whole. So if I look at the HTML for this example, the template is referencing pose.x, pose.y. But what happens if I want to just delete this and I want to return x as pos.x and y as pos.y? If I do this, you'll notice that the x and y values don't change when they did previously when referencing pose.x and y. So that's a weird behavior. And that's, again, because of how this works under the hood. It's passing by reference. But basically, what we have to do to fix that is we have to convert our reactive object into individual refs. So we can do that by using toRefs, which is imported from Vue. So toRefs, pause, and then we can now use X and Y in the template as we would expect, and it works perfectly. So here, again, const xy equals toRefs, and then we're able to use X and Y as we did before, and it updates the numbers exactly as we would expect. We also have computed. So if you're familiar with the computed property in Options API, this is very similar. So here we have the position that we had before. We also have a height and width, which I'm hiding some code just to make this slide a little bit cleaner. But then once we have the height and width of the screen, we can do a calculation of which percentage of the screen listens. So here we're saying pos.y, height ref.value, just doing some calculations. But you'll notice that I'm not having to explicitly mention what is changing is computed. Just like in the Options API, all the values that are reactive or change or modify are implicit. So it knows when pose updates, it knows when height refs updates. So I can open up the demo here. You can see some of the code that I hid. So I hid away in the slide the mouse update code. You can see that I hid away this set timeout, which basically just gets the bounding box of the screen. So now I can see which percentage of the screen I am, my mouse is towards, which is pretty cool. I'm looking for the rest of the API here, and I can't find it. That's because this API is super, super straightforward. There is a bit more advanced usage, but admittedly, this is all you'll really need for basic computed usage. I also put this here because there was way too much white space in this slide. I had to fill it with something, so I hope you appreciate the meme. So you can use computed with Vue Router. You can use it with other things as well. So let's say that we had our router that's defined in router.js file. When we update the route parameters, we're able to see these parameters live. So if I return parameters and I displayed it in the template and I clicked around to different query parameters or different parameters, I could see exactly what's been changed. And that's because the router version 4 has been updated underneath the hood to allow usage for the computed property to work as expected. Likewise with Vuex, if I have the store with the initial state and getter, setter, etc., and I return the store, if I use the store, I can access the state and the dispatch to be able to dispatch items or to return the state. And I can utilize all of this directly from the setup API instead of having to use the Options API and this $$ store or whatnot. Keep in mind that both Vue Router and Vuex do support the older Options API. I say older, but it's still likely to be in use. There's no talk of depreciating. So you can still use this $$ router and this .Vue this .store in outside of the setup function. We also have watch. So if you're familiar with React hooks, there's the ability to do side effects. So again, it's implicitly listened to the properties. So pretend that all this code was the same thing as a % height and width slide as before. So now we know that when one of these updates, the Y value, the % width, or the width breadth, if any one of these changes, it will run this function, which has a console log. So we can take a look at that really quickly. So you can see here that it'll update. I'm moving my mouse around, and because the ref is updating and because the computed property, it knows to rerun this side effect on my code. There are also ways to clean up that function. So let's say that, like, okay, I want those console logs to show for a short while, but then I want to be able to stop the debugging process. So like, this is my debugging, I can see what's going on, but then when I click stop console logging, you'll notice that it no longer console logs. There's also an on stop. So if you pass in a function here, you can return and do some kind of cleanup. So let's say that you had an asynchronous data call here. You could do a server call here. And then if you ever needed to cancel that server call, you could just do a cleanup and run an abort signal or something like that to prevent it. So cleanup is supported inside of the watch effect as well, which is super useful, that you don't have memory leaks. This is how it would probably be utilized in more of like a standard application. So here we're using watch effect for the update, so the mouse move. And then when I leave the page or I re-render or something like that, it will actually go and clean up the, remove the event listener for mouse move, so that we're not adding multiple different event listeners to the same API, which could cause bugs. So super useful there. There's also, if you want to do things more explicitly, there's also watch. So you notice that watch has a function that returns something. And once you update that return value, it'll do a comparison against the previous value and the new value. And once it checks that this value is changed, it will rerun this side effect. So here we can see that we're only listening for the X value instead of the XY value. And we'll see if the X value updates left, it'll say that we're going left. If we move our mouse right, it'll say we're going right. This website has stopped working temporarily because Chrome was being mean to me. Very cool. There we go. So now you can see that when I move my mouse left or right, it updates in the bottom corner. There's the read-only API, which is the final part of the reactivity API. So read-only is a bit interesting. It will be reactive. So if you have an object that you expect to be updated and continually updated, it will do so. But it will not let you write to that object. So let's take a look at what I'm talking about. So you'll see here that I have R only, which is the read-only object, and data. So if I remove that line of code and I try to write to R only, when I click on this button, I'm attempting to update the text to say updated. But if I click it, you'll notice that I'm instead getting errors saying that the set operation has failed because the target is read only. However, if I update the base object, right, the data object will tell the R only object to update, and then the R only update will then change the value here. So that does work. So read-only is super useful if you have some data that you want to be able to modify internally, but then when you expose it, you don't want to accidentally write data to it. So super useful. So not only can you do Reactivity API, you can also do some interop with the Options API. So again, as I mentioned, anything that's returned from here is able to be accessed from elsewhere. So let's say that we have the pause object. Once we return it, we can, instead of using the computed reactivity function, we can use the computed Options API. And then instead we have to do this.pause. And so on and so forth. Something I do want to mention is that when we're in the setup function, we have to use .value for refs, but once we leave the setup function, we no longer have to use .value. It's super confusing, and this is why the Vue team recommends explicitly not to mix and match your Options API with the Composition API. But if you're doing a gradual migration from one component into a Reactivity API, you can support a gradual migration instead of replacing the single component, but it's suggested that you do all at once. But you'll notice that it works as it would before. So still the same demo of updating the percentage of where my mouse is based on the screen. So again, very nice to be able to use both APIs if you need to. There's also lifecycle hooks. So if you need to use like on-mounted or whatnot, you can use those directly from the setup function. So you import on-mounted or on unmounted, and then you can use those functions to add event listeners or remove event listeners or do anything you would need to in those lifecycles. There are comparative APIs for the reactive APIs for every single one of the lifecycle hooks. So before mounted becomes on before mount, updated becomes on updated, so on and so forth. All of these are completely valid and useful in your code base to be able to do the migration to the Reactivity API. And here's where things get really exciting. You can also do custom compositions. So previously we had this logic for your mouse moving in one place, but let's say we wanted to reuse that logic multiple times. Here we could have all of our ref functions in a single function called useMouse, and then we can access that function of useMouse on the setup function itself, the XY, and then we can use other things like the other Reactivity APIs. So you'll notice that on-mounted is used twice here, and it works no problem. It behaves exactly as we would expect to run both times. So it means that we can extract logic out. It'll still work exactly as we expect, but we can extract logic out and create hooks almost, or compositions of our own logic that's in one place and consolidated instead of in multiple places. So again, super, super useful. And that's the basics. I feel like I've kind of ran through this, but I know that we're running a bit short on time. I will have Simone send a link to where you can find my code samples. This isn't the end of the talk. This is just like the end of the basics. I just want to give you a heads up. But under StackBlitz at Crutchcorn, you can find all these code samples, so you don't have to be like scratching your head and wondering what's going on. But that's not all. So the composition API is far from being completed. There are, in fact, 2 RFCs, which are like upcoming changes that the team wants to be able to make and is seeking public input right now. The 2 that I'm going to cover today is a setup script and the ref sugar. So a setup script is kind of interesting. So instead of having a function declaration with the name and setup function, instead you just replace it with just script setup. And then this all behaves as if it is part of the setup function. And then in order to define things like inputs and name and prop and everything, you do all of that from the define options, which is imported from Vue. There you can define your props, your emits, all the other things you would expect. And that's how you access your props, your emit, your slots, your trs. But you can still use custom compositions. You can still use the lifecycle methods. But you'll notice that we're not exporting anything. We're not changing anything. And the X and Y, just because it's defined at this root level, is directly accessible from the template. This define options was literally introduced like 2 days ago. So this API is very, very like evolving, very new, and it's not standardized yet. So this is just something to keep in mind that may come in the future. There's also this, which is the ref sugar. So instead of X, const X equals ref 0 or Y equals ref 0, it just becomes ref : XY. And then you can do, instead of X dot value equals whatnot, you can just do X. Or if you want to access the raw object without like any of the mutations that they're doing to hide away the dot value, you can do $Y, which is this API or this property, and then $Y dot value equals the page Y. This API, this RFC is a little more controversial. It seems like a lot of the ecosystem is kind of against it, but it's still very actively evolving, and we'll see where it goes from there. So finally, let's see how it compares against React hooks. So they're very similar in the sense that they help organize data and you can export functions and so on and so forth. But the setup function is only called once in Vue, which means you don't need to rely on optimizations like use callback or use memo or whatnot. It doesn't rely on call order. So if you've had to do an early return in Vue or in React, it's kind of a pain in the butt because you need to make sure that your hooks are in the right place and this and this and this. Not the case anymore. You can do an early return without having to worry about call order. So an API can be conditional. And then finally, there's no dependency array except for the watch API. And this means that you have a little bit less of a mental overhead when it comes to dealing with caching and stuff like that. And it works just as you would expect it out of the box. So that's my talk. I'm at Crutchcorn on GitHub and Twitter, and my website is crutchcorn.com, where you can find a bunch of blog posts that I've written. And that's the gist of the composition API, spoken very, very quickly.
That was very, very well delivered, by the way. You've done a fantastic job for the time you had, nice and quick, and amazing for the last couple of things you mentioned. You said it's quite new. I was like, I never heard of this. Yes, it was added 2 days ago.
Yeah. So like you literally have to be reading the GitHub RFCs where they're literally making code changes. Like if we look at the very bottom of this page, oh, come on, Chrome, stop doing what you're doing. Let me scroll.
No.
Chrome!
It stopped. It says too late. The time is over. And some people have been asking for the slides, if it's possible. I don't know if you're able to share the slides as well.
Yeah.
Share your link.
I will mention that there are some extra slides at the end here that I cut out due to time restrictions. So ignore those, but I can share the slides here. Where is this share button?
Top right.
Oh, there it is. I'm sorry. I was like, man, I'm missing something here. Awesome. There you go.
Amazing. I'm going to share it over for guys. So there was one question from the audience, and it was about what is the difference between the ref and what is when to use reactive and when to use ref?
It's much more of an organizational question, right? So like if you think about it, it's the comparison is like when to use an object versus individual components. So like you can do const y equals 1 and you can do like const pose y equals 1 and const pose x equals 1, right? But you could also do const pose equals object x1 y1, right? And that's perfectly valid in typical JavaScript, but it changes the way that you interact with that API. So like maybe you want to ship down only the X position, but you need to be able to use the Y position internally in a different composition. Or maybe you want to send down both the X and Y values. So there's a lot of different alternatives to like when you might want to use one or the other. And it's just very contextual on what type of code base you're running for. One of the things that you might want to avoid is the dot value. Dot value can be my first time with the Vue API when I was doing interop with the options API. I legitimately thought that there was a bug in ref because of how dot value works in some places, but you don't need it in other places, and it was very confusing to me. And maybe if you want to avoid that, you can just use the reactive object and only use that to avoid the dot value property. There's a lot of different alternatives out there that will allow you to kind of have your choice of what you think is best for your API.
Yeah, so you know, for my understanding as well, when you use ref is for primitive values, so for numbers, boolean, a string, and usually you use the ref, the reactive when you have an object. So like you mentioned before, you should before the setup mouse, you know, the take mouse information. So when you create those more components, you should then you know, return. It's nice for you to return a reactive because you return the whole object. So when you call that within the template, you say mouse movement dot x, mouse movement dot y. So it's much easier to clean. But yeah, you're right. Behind the scene, they're completely the same.
Yeah. So awesome.
We don't know, Meredith. I think, you know, as Corbin mentioned, the refs. RFCs are so new that everything can change.
Yeah. So I would highly recommend, if you want to do a side project and you're wanting to use a setup sugar, totally go for it. Just realize that, like, you know, they're literally making changes yesterday that you're going to have to change your code base to. So understand that it's not stable. It's not ready for production yet. It's not even shipped, to be honest. And in able to use these, you have to use like npmi vue.atnext or whatnot. So you have to use very unstable versions of Vue to even be able to use these RFCs. But definitely they're actively looking for feedback, and they're listening to the community. And that's why they're changing so frequently. So if you do want to try these APIs out, and you do want to see how you can actively influence the future of Vue, you can go and check these APIs out and vocalize your feedback on what you think is useful or what they could change.
Yeah, they ask for help for that reason. They want to know what the community wants. Amazing. So unfortunately, we went a couple of minutes over, but there were 2 fantastic talk and 2 fantastic deliveries. So I'm going to bring Samuel back as well, just to thank him and remove the screen. So guys, thank you so much. From the 2 opposite, big wide 7 hours gap between all of us. But it's fantastic for you to spend the time to come around and to give this beautiful talk. Introductions to Storyblok, it was great. I say, I always heard of it, never actually seen it in action, so it was great, and a very good understanding of composition API that is needed for over and over and over until we actually get the grip on it. So thank you so much, both of you. I will reach out as well on Twitter because I do have a couple of questions, and if you are watching it later on, or if you're watching the recording, I think the guys will be more than happy to also be contacted on Twitter, or if not,
absolutely.
Okay, so again, thank you so much to you guys. Thank you so much for Digital Labs, our sponsor, and I'll see you again next month or in our next